That whole sense of not unconditional love, not the unconditional love of Christmas. This unconditional love of a babe who came into the world to demonstrate God's love for us, unconditional God's love for us. But a love that is couched only in condition that I will only love you if you meet my needs, rather than if you meet the desired needs of who you are as an individual, and allowing you to be all that you can. I truly believe that the Jesus that came into the world was a Jesus who came to demonstrate God's unconditional love and to show us a new way forward so that we might become as Christ-like in all of our ways. And the problem with the Christian church is that it's no longer Christ-like in all of our ways, it's Christ-like only in my way, or Christ-like in somebody else's way. But it doesn't talk about that unconditional love that really is lavished about and upon God's people. Many of us have come from systems where love has been conditional. And it's hardly surprising, therefore, that when we form relationships and when we form friendships with one another, we sometimes bring that baggage with us because that's the only kind of love that many of us have known. It's the only kind of love that many of us have operated out of. And the reality is that even today, even within church systems, even within our own church system, sometimes what we do with one another is really not love. We might couch it in those words, but the reality is it's not the love that the Bible, it's not the love that Jesus teaches us. You see, the love that Jesus teaches us is to be aware, not necessarily of this love that's here, but to be aware of this love that comes from here. This love that came down at Christmas. That's what we've sung. We talk so often about this love divine or love's excelling, this love that came down at Christmas. And the love that came down at Christmas was an incredible light. The love that came down at Christmas was a God who wanted humanity, you and me, to understand that God was so in love with us, so wrapped up in us, so over the top in love with us, that love was the love that wanted to be presented at Christmas. You see, I think one of the things that happens for us is that we don't allow ourselves to sense and to feel that love. Because the love that we've sensed and felt has not been this unconditional love. This love that came down at Christmas. You know what happens when you start to realize that we have a God who is head over heels in love with us? This God that is beyond any perhaps emotional love that we've experienced in this world. What happens is that love is called to translate itself through our bodies to a love, not that we give to somebody else, but a love that we must first give to ourselves. That the overwhelming sense of the love that came down at Christmas is an overwhelming sense of a love for you, for me, for us individually. That's where it all must begin. And yet many of us deny ourselves, or rather deflect that love, because we're not sure that we're worthy of it. We're not sure that we're worthy of this love that came down at Christmas. And yet when we start to accept that real love that came down at Christmas, that God who is Emmanuel, that God who is with us today, when we get to accept that love, just for ourselves. You see, there's something selfish about the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is a love that can be just for you. That when you begin to accept that love that's just for you, then you get to make the right decisions. Then you get to make relationships with one another from that place of love. Not from the love that perhaps your parents didn't give you. Or from the relationship that you were once in and hurt you. How many of us have been in relationships that have hurt us? Come on. How many? Okay, if you have not been in a relationship that's hurt you, would you please come and tell me the secret? Because the reality is that we're human. We're human. And so often we do hurt one another. Now, of course, some of that hurt has not just been emotional hurt. Some of that hurt has been physical hurt. And something that we don't often talk about in our community is the domestic violence that goes on behind closed doors and sometimes in front of closed doors in our relationships. And it's hardly surprising that we find it difficult to establish relationship with one another when the only love that we felt has been the love at the back of someone's hand. I want to make sure that today that nobody feels that they can't talk about domestic violence in their relationships. And that not one of us need to put up with domestic violence in our relationships. There was a powerful testimony a few months ago in our congregation from Pamela. And she spoke very passionately about the years of abuse that she went through. And it took her a long time to find the courage to actually speak out the words because, and I put words in your mouth right now, Pamela, but because she felt that it was her fault rather than whatever the circumstance was. And how many of us feel that it's our fault if we are the victims of domestic violence or of abuse in our relationships? Love came down at Christmas. I so wish that we could all sense this awesomeness of this love and to feel it this morning. I so wish that we could kind of wrap it up and bring it forth so that we could unwrap it and just release it to the world. And I believe we can do that. I believe that we can do that this morning. But how many of us would accept it if we really had it right in front of us? Or how many of us could believe it if it was really wrapped up and put in front of us this morning? Love in the midst of pain. Love in the midst of suffering. Or perhaps a better question, where is God? Where is love in the midst of all of these situations? Where is the God that we preach of in the Christian church or in our places of worship? Where is God in the midst of the pain and the loss and all of the things that you and I go through? And the fact of the matter is, sisters and brothers, is that love is available to us. But we have to open ourselves up to receive it. We have to open ourselves up to believe that we are worthy of it. And we have to open ourselves up to the possibility, to the true belief that that worthiness is for you as much as it is for the person who sat next to you this morning. And that it is that love, that overwhelming sense of love that helps us to make the good decisions in our lives, the right decisions. I want to tell you, there are times in my life where I'm not sure I'm worthy of that love. You know? Yeah, and here I am, the professional Christian. But the reality is there are times in my life I don't think I'm worthy of that love. And when I get to that place, I act out from that place. That if I'm not worthy of love, why are you giving it to me? And I reject it. I push it away. And I think that has something to do with my fear of really accepting that not only am I a child of God, but I'm worthy of this love that came down at Christmas. Or perhaps it might be that I really want that love, but I've been hurt so many times in the past that I better deflect it now before it gets too real. And if it gets too real, then I'm not sure I know how to handle it. Oh boy, I did not mean to say that this morning.